My salutations to all of you. Welcome back to the Gita Odyssey live sessions. Today we are doing the 12th session, and today is an important day because we are starting the verse by verse analysis of the Bhagavad Gita. So far, we talked about the foundations required for a meaningful study. We talked about why should we study Bhagavad Gita, what is Bhagavad Gita, and how should I study Bhagavad Gita. Then we had a long analysis, a detailed analysis of the meditative verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which connects a seeker to the message of the Bhagavad Gita. And we spent 2 days understanding the context of the Bhagavad Gita, which is Mahabharata story. So one day we talked about the entire story that is leading up to the Bhagavad Gita. And we also made a point that while the context is important, the message of the Bhagavad Gita is not dependent upon the context. If it was a context specific solution for Arjuna at that point of time, there would not have been any value for the Bhagavad Gita in our lives. So we clearly saw that. And then last week, we tried to understand the context of the Gita in our modern day life. So we talked about what exactly is the fundamental problem addressed by the Bhagavad Gita. And that is exactly what we are going to see in the first chapter. So that is what we are going to start from today. We are going to do a Shloka by Shloka analysis. We are going to talk about the Mahabharata context of the Bhagavad Gita described in the Shloka. And also we are trying to see the subjective aspects of those Shloka in our daily life. This is going to be our approach. My request is please follow the talk and try to understand. Understanding is very important. Understanding of the Gita is more important than blindly believing in Gita. So please pay attention and ask any questions you have using our Q&A forum or at the end of the class. So with that, let's get started. So today we are going to talk about, we are going to start the first shloka. So let's listen to the recording and from there we can get started.
Namaha adha pradhamodhyayah Arjuna Vishada Yoga Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Mamakaः Pandavascaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya.
Dhritarashtra Vaja. Dhritarashtra said, or Dhritarashtra inquired. What exactly Dhritarashtra inquired? Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra is asking a question to his charioteer Sanjaya. What exactly is the question? He said, what exactly Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Mamaka Pandavaschaiva? What did my people and Pandavas do, O Sanjaya? Then the description of that is the other portion of the shloka. So what exactly is the other description? What exactly my people means the Kauravas and Pandavas do? The details are given. Samaveta Yuyutsuvaha, assembled for a battle. So my people, that is Kauravas and Pandavas, were assembled for a battle. What happened in that battlefield? Little bit more clarity is given on the first part of the shloka. Where exactly they assembled? They assembled in a place called Kurukshetra. So the Pandavas and Kauravas were assembled in a place called Kurukshetra. And what exactly happened in that battlefield? And what is the characteristics of this Kurukshetra? It is a land of Dharma. So in that, for a dharmic cause, my people and Pandavas assembled for a Dharma Yuddha. or a civil war. So what exactly happened there? This is the first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. So the translation is Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjaya, assembled in the dharmic land of Kurukshetra and desiring to battle, what did my son and the son of Pandus do? This is exactly what Dhritarashtra's question. This verse is a simple looking verse and most often overlooked by the students of Gita. But this sloka is very important to understand the message of the Gita and the overall picture of the Gita. This is what we are going to see that in a minute. So one observation here is, during our introduction, we said that the first shloka or the first word of the Bhagavad Gita is Dharma. You can see that here. Dharma Kshetre. And the last word of the Bhagavad Gita is Mama. So if you combine that, it is Mama Dharma. So the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is my Dharma. What I need to do. What is the essential activities I need to do. This is what I need to adhere to. For transforming myself to my highest possibilities, what exactly I need to do. This is the essence of Dharma. So this is the first shloka. Let's try to understand a little bit more of this shloka, because this shloka is very important. So what happened? Dhritarashtra, as you know, is a blind old king. What is the problem with the blindness? Blindness is he is not aware of what is happening. He is blind towards what needs to be done. What is wrong? That is what is more important. So the blindness of the Dhritarashtra is indicating the blind spot we all have towards our life and what needs to be done and what is happening around us. We always go with a tunneled vision, with lot of blind spots. This is what is represented by Dhritarashtra. And what exactly Dhritarashtra is doing here? He is asking Sanjaya to explain something which is not in his visibility at this point of time. And this is the critical thing, because we all have so many things that are happening in our mind where we do not have visibility. We do have a lot of things in our life where we do not have visibility. We need to put an effort to understand what is happening in our life, because if you want to make any change in your life, you need to know who you are. Then only you can make who you want to be. This is very important. And that is what is the importance of this Dhritarashtra's question. So here, Dhritarashtra made a conscious choice to understand what is happening in the battle of Kurukshetra, what is happening in the battle of Dharma. He wanted to understand. That is the importance of this question. This beautiful painting is done by Shreya Sajan. You can see Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya and the colors used. So just wanted to acknowledge Shreya's work at this particular point of time. So let us go through a little bit more details. So what happened was, during this Kurukshetra war, Maharshi Vyasa approached Dhritarashtra and asked, do you want to see what is happening in the battle of Kurukshetra? But Dhritarashtra, he didn't want to see directly, because he knew that his children are on the side of Adharma, and during this battle, they are going to get suffered. So what he did was, he requested Vyasa, instead of giving him the site of the war, please give that to my charioteer. He can narrate that. So this charioteer's divine sight represents the ability to report the unbiased truth. And this is exactly what we need in our life. We need to have a means to understand things as they are, not colored by our likes and dislikes. So Sanjaya has a very specific role in the Bhagavad Gita. He is able to report things as they are. And our ability to seek Sanjaya in our life, it could be our mental self-analysis, or it could be or it could be a guide outside. But the important point is that we need to have an unbiased understanding of who we are, what exactly is governing us. So that is the importance of this shloka. Instead of Dhritarashtra looking through his biased vision, he wanted somebody who can report the things as they are to him. That is another point. So, apart from the Mahabharata story, we already discussed the Kurukshetra war represents a battle that is happening within each one of us. In every mind, there is conflicts and wars happening day and night. So the external Kurukshetra war is always happening inside us. As simple as like, should I eat that healthy food or should I go for the junk food? Should I sleep or get up and do the exercise? These are simple, harmless problem, meaning situations. But in our day-to-day life, day, this battle is happening. And Dhritarashtra's blindness, it's a metaphor of our ignorance of what is happening. For example, we think that, okay, what is driving me towards that unhealthy lifestyle? Not aware of that. We automatically get carried away with our life without even realizing that what exactly is governing us. Are we driven towards the path of good, or are we just going in the path of pleasant and getting suffered in the long run? So, meaning we need to understand that our mind plays a critical role in shaping our decision and our action. And most of the times, we are not um, we are not seeing what is happening in our mind. So this blind mind is what is represented by Dhritarashtra. So the mind chooses to stay blind to a lot of things happening in our mind. That is what is represented by the Dhritarashtra. So the Kauravas are in our mind, the Pandavas are in our mind. The Kauravas represents the adharmic thoughts that and the emotions. So the thoughts and emotions that will not help us, that will not lead us to the best in us. That is represented by Kauravas. A simple example is like our desire for the junk food or our desire for the unhealthy lifestyle, our thoughts and emotion that helps us to cut corners in our life. That is Kauravas. And Pandavas represents the thoughts and emotions that uplift us, that lead us to the path of goodness. So this is what the first shloka represents. So the theme of the first shloka is, do you truly know what is happening within? Because most of the times we don't know what is happening. We just go with the impulses. So it is that self-awareness what is given in that first shloka. So please don't think this as a story. This is a call out for each one of us to understand what is happening within us. So there are some symbolism used. Dhritarashtra. Dhrita meaning that firmly connected with. Rashtra means kingdom. So Dhritarashtra represents the blind mind in each one of us. What exactly is the blind mind? The mind is considered as a kingdom. The whole kingdom, our body is considered as a kingdom. So the Dhritarashtra or the blind mind is blindly attached to our body. So what exactly the body wants, it just goes with that. So the destructive emotions and the negative thoughts that comes out of the mind is generally ignored, or generally it is blind to that. So the Dhritarashtra represents blind mind that sees only one perspective, that just don't recognize the need for dharma. That is what is Dhritarashtra. So, what is Sanjaya? Who is Sanjaya? Sanjaya literally means the one who is victorious. The one who is victorious, it represents the honest introspection or the self analysis within each one of us. So, the Dhritarashtra represents the blind mind, and the Sanjaya represents the self analysis within us. And the Kauravas represents the negative thoughts or the destructive emotions that takes us away from the path of dharma. And Pandavas represents the dharmic thoughts and emotions that helps us to grow. So there is a constant battle that is happening. Kaurava versus Pandava. And Dhritarashtra is there and Sanjaya is there. So the question is, the importance of this first shloka is Dhritarashtra is putting an effort to understand what is happening in the mind. So are we doing that? More symbolism. Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra meaning Kshetra means field and Kuru means actions. So what exactly is the field of our mental activities? So it's our body, it's our system. The whole mind and the body is the field of our mental activities. So if we are not established in true harmony with our body, mind and intellect, what happens? Our actions becomes just actions. So we talked about what is Kurukshetra. So Kurukshetra is our body where all the mental activities are happening. If we are not aligned, if our blind mind is blind, what is going to happen? The mind, if the body is not aligned with the mind and intellect, what is going to happen is our actions will not be aligned to dharma. I told a simple example. When you see the junk food, what is going to happen is you may just go after that. You don't care. So the harmony is not there. But when the body, the mind, and the intellect works in unison, in harmony, what happens? The instrument of my action becomes a field of my action. The Kurukshetra becomes a Dharma Kshetra. Every action I do will be aligned with Dharma. For example, when I see that junk food, I will see whether is that going to be helpful to me. Then what happens? More than my likes and dislikes, what needs to be done will be executed rather than what I feel to do. There is always a difference. My likes and dislikes always pushes and pull me to do what I feel. But this extra step or this extra training which unites your body, mind and intellect, it is going to drive you in the path of good. And when that happens, what is going to happen is the path of mere activity will be transformed into a path of dharma. The Kurukshetra becomes Dharma Kshetra. So the first shloka of the Bhagavad Gita is a call to transform this Kurukshetra from merely a field of activities to the path of dharma. And what is that first step? I need to understand what is happening in my system. And the Dhritarashtra's call represents that. What is happening? What is happening inside me? Who is governing my mind? What exactly the thoughts and emotions that driving me? Is that the right governance that I need to have in my mind? This is what the importance of this shloka is. So this shloka is extremely important from that perspective. So let's continue. The next point. So how can we transform the Kurukshetra to Dharmakshetra? So the first thing is the quest for clarity. We need to initiate a constant self-introspection. Just like that blind king Dhritarashtra initiated that query, what is happening in the battlefield? We need to initiate constant self-analysis to see what is happening in the mind. This is the transformation we can initiate. The field of action guided by dharma, that is our goal. So monitoring itself is going to understand, okay, what exactly is the lifestyle I am following? What exactly is the values that is driving me? What exactly is the emotional hijack I have in my day-to-day life? Is that going to help me? So understanding that is the first step before you initiate that change. So the first chapter of the Gita is the problem statement, as we stated earlier. And to understand the problem, you need to look for that problem. What is happening inside me? This is the transformation of Dharma Kshetra and Kurukshetra. So the first step is you need to understand, right? So you need to have a mental equilibrium, and just like a battle strategy, you need to understand to see what is happening inside me. So the self introspection or self analysis is very important in our life. So the initial shloka of the Bhagavad Gita to guides us to scrutinize what values or what qualities shape our life. To understand this, why recognizing what exactly they are, we can change it. So this is what we have seen. So we already talked about these points. So let's move on to the shloka's one summary. It is an instruction to introspect. So the opening shloka of the Bhagavad Gita tells us to introspect. It's an instruction from our blind mind to the self-analysis. So the blind mind is represented by Dhritarashtra, and the introspection or self-analysis is represented by Sanjaya, and the instruction is what is happening. What exactly is the feelings and the emotions controlling us? How exactly we are responding to situation? Mind you, identification of the problem is the first step towards the solution. So let me pause here. This is the major idea of the first sloka. Avanti, you want to add any points here?
Yes, I will. Also, can you put on the painting of our Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya if you have
Sure.
it, please? So
Sure.
I'd like to make a mention of that painting, this painting that is here. It's done by a young 19-year-old artist called Shreya, and it's beautiful. We'll try and send it on the WhatsApp group, just the painting itself. And you can see the entire, what do you say, the palace where, or the room that this was being, the chambers that this was being discussed, highlighted most beautifully, animated most beautifully. So a very big thank you once again to Shreya for rendering us this fantastic painting that makes the visuals come alive so beautifully. So yeah, we've already discussed, I took up that one word, mamaka, that what do my sons and Pandu's sons, where he separates the two. We've already discussed that when you went missing, Rajeshji. Another thing that we just discussed now was Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra. So let's have a little game here. Let's play, okay? Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra. You just mix the words around. So in these two words, there are actually 4 words. In those 4 words, 2 words are Kshetra, and the other 2 words are Dharma and Kuru. Dharma and Kuru. So like Rajeshji said, that actually this entire life experience can be a Dharma Kshetra. We will study as we go on in the Gita what brings us here, why are we stuck in this life death cycle, what is it that's keeping us bound to these daily problems of all of ours. This all will be revealed as we go on with the different shlokas in the Bhagavad Gita. But basically, the underlying intent is of human life is that this whole field of the human experience, if we live by dharma and we make this entire field a dharma kshetra, we will be saved from the battlefield that it actually is in reality. Right now, it's nothing but a Kurukshetra. And that is what we are all caught up in relentlessly, endlessly. So, when we look at it, when we mix those words again, make a new sentence from Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra, we can say Kshetra Dharma Kuru, which means from field to field of my everyday experiences, if I can align to Dharma and if I can continue to perform Dharma, Kshetra, Dharma, Kuru. If I continue to do Dharma from every to experience of mine, then this Kurukshetra that I have made out of my life, degraded myself from my highest potential. I've degraded myself into a mindless warrior. Not even a warrior that has any aim and purpose in life, into a mindless warrior. What are we? I read a meme just now, just before coming on. It was going on WhatsApp or Twitter, I don't remember where. That in the end, we are all going to die. What are we getting caught up in? And it just hit me that what are we doing here? What problems are we making into the Kurukshetra of our life? senseless. And when you start studying and understanding the Bhagavad Gita, you will be appalled at yourself that what am I entangling myself in? So that just those two words, Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra, can be a 1 hour class of how do we convert this battlefield that we've gotten ourselves into a Dharma Kshetra, a pure field of learning how to handle our problems, learning how to transcend them, and evolve in this life, and hopefully even just merge back with supreme consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of human life. And one more thing I want to highlight over here is that, see, this question will come up in question answer session, I am 100% sure. Why was Sanjaya given that vision to see the battle? Well, Vyasa offered the vision to Dhritarashtra. But Dhritarashtra is not dumb, or he's not foolish, or he's not stupid, you see. And he's not unconscientious. He knows what is wrong, but he's not able to agree with what is wrong. And he knows what the state and what the fate of his children is going to be on that battlefield. He has no doubt about it. And he doesn't have the strength within himself to watch that battlefield and what's going to unfold. He doesn't have it. So he refuses that sight. So then Vyasa offers it to Sanjaya. And why to Sanjaya? Because Sanjaya here portrays the objective intellect, which is not clouded by the desires, the emotions that the mind, the blind king, is completely paralyzed by. Just wanted to highlight those 2 points. We can continue, Rajesh ji.
Actually, Avanti, if you want, probably you can highlight that story. You brilliantly put that in the book, the story of two wolves. So I put a slide also. If you want to give, that's a very good story.
So for that, I have to give a little bit of a background.
Sure.
So over here, when Dhritarashtra says, what do Pandavas and Kauravas do? That apart that he says, my Kauravas and his Pandavas. But when he says these two, what do the Pandavas? We'll get into this more in detail as we go through the rest of the shlokas. But at the offset, Pandavas mean they're both Pandavas and Kauravas, when we turn them towards ourselves, are both tendencies and qualities of our own mind. So the Pandavas represent the good qualities of our mind, and the Kauravas represent the not so good, I won't say bad, but the more, devolutionary qualities of our mind. So that is what is represented by Pandavas and Kauravas. Now, when we look at it, which of these qualities will supersede and guide our actions and determine our fate? Even the number of Pandavas and Kauravas is different. Pandavas, as we studied right in the beginning when we were looking at the context of the Mahabharata, was smaller in number. It had 7 Akshayonis or battalions, whereas Kauravas had 11 Akshayonis or battalions. So this does not mean that our good qualities are less and our bad qualities are more. The problem is that human life is such, the human mind is such, that we have a greater pull naturally by default. The mind has a greater pull towards negative. It's easier to do bad than to do good. You don't have to think 20 times to do the wrong things in life. It's even with children, you see, right? They just slip into all the mistakes and blunders. They don't have to think. But to resist evil and to do good, it's an efforted thing. So it's not that the good qualities are less. It's just that the force of the evil or the wrong tendencies in our mind are stronger than the good qualities within us. To highlight that story and how to make the good qualities stronger, there's a story which we put in the book, that one day one grandfather was walking with his young son, and they come across a Cherokee grandfather, tribal grandfather. He was walking with his young son, and they came across 2 wolves fighting, and they were fighting quite fiercely. So the little boy asks his grandfather, "Oh my God, look how they're fighting. Who do you think will win out of the 2?" And the grandfather very nonchalantly looks at the boy and says, "The stronger one." So the boy says, "Well, who's the stronger one?" He's like, "The one who's fed more." And it's same with us, that within our mind, though we have these good and bad qualities, the ones that we feed more, as the ones we encourage more, the ones that we entertain more, the ones that we practice more and put into our day-to-day life more, will be stronger within us. And that Kurukshetra battle, that is, we are talking about in the first verse right away, is nothing but this constant struggle between we ourselves choosing between what is right and what is wrong. In the Bible and in the Christian faith, they say two angels are sitting on each of our shoulders. One angel is the good angel, one angel is the not good angel, the mischievous angel, or you can even say the devil. And both are whispering in your ears constantly. The good one is saying, do this. And the bad one is saying, no, 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 do that, do this, do that. We are confused. It is only when we center, and like I said, when we get up to that level of Sanjaya, of the pure, clear intellect, is when we are able to hush the devil or the not so good angel and empower the good angel to help us do better things. And as we all know, as you think, so you act, as you act, so you become. And that's our fate that we blame on some god or some destiny. But it all comes down to our thought and action.
Great. So even you take a one point from that story, it's important to understand that whom we are feeding, which wolf we are feeding. Most of the times, unknowingly, we are feeding that not so good wolf. And eventually, it becomes so strong and can defeat the good wolf. So, the importance of this shloka is it redirects our attention on what is happening in our mind. I request all of you to go and do a little bit of analysis. This is very important. Most of the times we don't know what exactly we are feeding to our mind. We don't know what is happening in our mind. We often just act just based on the impulses. But impulses, who creates that drives in us to do certain things? Are we doing the right thing? And every one of us at some stages of life, we need to pause and ask that question. And that is what the importance of this shloka. This shloka is one of the most important shloka of the Bhagavad Gita from that perspective, because the battle within is 10 times dangerous than the battle outside. If you cannot win the battle inside, the outside battle is going to be it's going to be very difficult. So first step in our path towards success, in our path towards progress, is to make sure that we are understanding what is happening inside our mind. What we want is our choice, not something pushed by our mind. So this is what it is. So let's continue. So actually, we are creating a set of sadhanas as we discussed earlier. We can discuss this in our Q&A. One important sadhana from this shloka is daily self-analysis. The essence of that is you need to find a quiet time, maybe end of the day or the beginning of the day, and just relax yourself by doing some relaxation exercises, maybe a few breathing or just a positive affirmation or some simple progressive muscle relaxation. That's very important. And after that, do a mindful reflection. What exactly is the major things that unfolded that day? What exactly was my mental state at that point of time? Was I reacting or was I acting? What exactly the thoughts and emotions came to my mind? And is that going to be helpful to me? So, this practice is very powerful. In our meditation classes, we are going to incorporate this. Gina, Vinith, all are going to do this later. And also, we are going to send these instructions to you. But this is an important practice based upon the shloka one. So, the quote for that shloka is along with life's perilous terrains, pausing to ask a simple question can often pave the way for the profound understanding. And Dhritarashtra's question, to whom? Sanjaya, who can give an impartial analysis of what is happening. That is critical in our life. So let's invoke the Sanjaya within us and try to understand what is happening inside us. So this concludes the first shloka. So now let's go to the second shloka. Let's listen to the chanting.
उवाच दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकं व्यूढं दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत्.
So let's understand the literal meaning of the second shloka. So Sanjaya observed or replied. What? Based on Dhritarashtra's question, Sanjaya is responding. He is saying that what is happening? He is reporting back to Dhritarashtra what is happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Sanjaya is saying that both the armies were lined up and they were ready to fight. And Prince Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, he just observed the formation of this Pandava forces. And having seen that Pandava forces, Drishtva tu Pandavanikam, the array of Pandava's forces. So after observing the Pandava forces, Vyutam means, or Vyuham means, it's the army formation. Duryodhana Stada, son of Dhritarashtra Duryodhana, then what did he do? Acharyam upasangamya. He approached his teacher, Dronacharya, Raja Vajanam Abravid, and spoke the following words. So, Duryodhana, the first focus of Sanjaya in that battlefield goes to Duryodhana. He saw the Pandava army, the array of Pandava army, and he went to his teacher and spoken the following words. So let's try to understand the deeper meaning of it. So Sanjaya's observation, Sanjaya's impartial analysis revealed crucial observation. So Duryodhana, the son of Dhritarashtra, observed the strategically positioned the Pandava army, and he initiated a tactical dialogue with Dronacharya. Drona is the mentor or the teacher of both Kauravas and Pandavas, and he has a pivotal role in probably influencing the outcomes of the war. So Duryodhana, there are two observations here. Even though Duryodhana's army is much larger, as Avanti said, it is 11 Akshauhini compared to the 7 Akshauhini of the Pandavas. Even though it is larger, more mightier, has more warriors, still he is not aligned with the Dharma. So that creates always a confusion. So even if I am prepared, even if I have all the resources, if I am not aligned with Dharma, there is always some doubts in my own victory, my own intent and everything. So that's one thing. And second thing is, Duryodhana's approach to Drona is very, very important because Drona can influence the outcome of the battle. So talking to Duryodhana, making sure that Drona is aligned with the overall strategy is going to help in the victory of the warfare. So these two observations are there. But let's continue to understand the symbolism behind Duryodhana. Duryodhana means the one who is difficult to be conquered. Durya means, the literal meaning is the one who is difficult to defeat in the warfare. It symbolically represents the leader of the destructive emotions and thoughts. And it is that material passion inside us. That's what the intense material desire in us. That is what is represented by Duryodhana. Think about this intense desire, intense passion for the worldly objects. As Avanti said, it is not completely bad or anything like that. But this obsession for the material desires, they are very powerful. Even though we do have dharmic values in our mind, these obsession for these material objects can drag us away from the path of dharma. That is what is Duryodhana. That is why we talked earlier. Duryodhana is famously speaking in the Mahabharata, Janami dharmam nachame pravritti, nacha janami atharmam nachame nivritti. I know what is good or what is right. I cannot do it because I'm driven by this material passion. And that material passion, it is hard to conquer for each one of us. You just think about our own autobiography. We know that when we are obsessed with certain things, we are ready to cut corners. We don't care about other things, and that value in us, or that force in us, is represented by Duryodhana. So please understand that. And then Drona. Drona means that which is there in a melted form. That is the meaning of the word. So it comes from a Sanskrit root called dhru. It means that which stays in a melted form. It implies the habits within us. So the habits, like, we need to understand a little bit more. The habits can be good and bad. Both good values and the material values are supported by our habit, because there can be values related to goodness, and there can be habits related to even not so good things. Both are trained by Drona. So symbolically in Mahabharata, you can see Drona trains both Kaurava and Pandava. So we talked about this. And what exactly the self-analysis of Sanjaya reveals. Sanjaya says, our mind has Pandava armies are there in our mind. So the Pandava army represents the noble values, including self-control, calmness, devotion, love, empathy. Each and every one of us has that value. And these values are powerful, and these values in us are good enough to take control of our mind and lead us towards the path of good. But seeing this, what the material passion or the atharmic values does, they connect with the habits, and because of that habit, we get slipped away from the noble values. Look at this, how that Mahabharata story is connected with the day-to-day value. So think about this. Our mind has goodness, we have love, we have compassion, we have um, uh, like what is that, fortitude. We do have the desire to learn, we have the desire to support other people. But the problem is what? The passion. And when that material passion or the material desires becomes a habit, when both of them are aligned, what happens? The Pandava forces will be put into the backstage. This is exactly what happens. So let's try to understand a little bit more habits. We all know what exactly is the habits. They are the repeated routines that is integrated into our life. When we get up in the morning, we don't think twice to go and brush our teeth, right? So like that, what meaning, for example, the morning coffee for a lot of people, what happened? When you started, it was not there. But over a period of time, what happened? That became part of our personality. So they shape the fundamental aspects of our personality: brushing, going to work, hygiene factors, and also our learning habits, our meditation, our exercise routine, all these things. Exactly like that, the drinking, engaging in not so good activities, all that can become habits. So the frequent repetition, what happens? This creates pattern, and eventually it creates automatic responses. What is the thing of the habit? You first create a habit, and then that habits makes us. This is the problem. So the habits has a strong influence in our personality, and that became automatic and prompting specific feelings, specific thoughts. So even if you're a good person, even if you have all the good values, if you have atharmic habits, for example, drinking. There are good people, I know that, right? They are fantastic up to the daytime. But when that evening time comes in, the happy hour comes in, they just go and drink. I'm not saying that drinking is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying that even though you don't want, that happens. Some people, when they go to a buffet, when they meaning they are already determined that I'm following this healthy routine. They just get carried away because the habits are so powerful, and that is what is represented by Drona. The power of habits. See, the positive habits can give good emotions, constructive thoughts, and great actions. The negative actions, just as simple as biting the nail, it is try to pull us down. So this is very important. To understand what habits here and how that habits controlling us. So the second shloka tells us that Sanjaya tells us that in our battle within, there are dharmic and adharmic forces. And typically, these adharmic forces get connected with the habit and try to create a habit. And because of that effect, what is going to happen? The mind will be conquered by these adharmic forces because of the power of habit. And in the Mahabharata, you can see very symbolically, Drona was able to destroy like Akshauhinis after Akshauhinis of the Pandava forces. The problem is, if the habit was with the Pandava forces, it would have been a different thing. But typically, these habits always follows with more than what is good, what is pleasant. That is the dangerous point, and that is highlighted in this slope. So, what exactly is the takeaway? Vigilance is the key. We need to look at our habits and see what habits are is good for us and try to understand the habit duality within, because the introspection and reflection tells us that the habits can be good and bad, and the good habits are beneficial for us, whereas the bad habits can put us down. And the habit and the spiritual progress. Understanding our habits is so critical in our spiritual progress. Otherwise, these habits can put us down. So, what is the conclusion? The inner alignment with Dharma, beyond the shackles of habitual patterns, that is very critical for our growth. So, the Shloka 1.2 is a call for us to be beware of the bad habits. So, how the bad habits can influence us towards the path of good. So, seeing the positive thoughts or the dharmic thoughts, the Pandava forces, the material passion always connects with habits and overpower the positive intent. This is what is happening typically in the battle within. So, once again, Drishtva Pandavanikam Vyutham Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vajanam Abravit. So, summarizing, Drona, meaning the introspection, sees goodness values in my mind. But why that good values are not getting influential in my life? The answer is given. Usually, the habits get united with the adharmic values and the tendencies in me, and that take over the mind. This is the essence of this shloka. So, Avanti, please add your thought.
Thank you. So, I'm going to take you back to the actual visual and a word used in this one shloka, shloka 2 of chapter 1. So, the visual is that there is a teacher and there is a student on that battlefield. And there's a very interesting usage of word by Sanjaya when he starts relaying the unfolding of the battlefield. And he says, Raja. He calls Duryodhana Raja, which for some is translated as prince, and for some, many, it's translated as king. So what he said is King Duryodhana approaches his teacher. A very key point to notice. It sounds very innocuous in the grand scheme of things. But there are two things that you have to understand over here. Dronacharya was the revered teacher. He was the one who taught both sides the warfare. If either side is competent enough to fight that war and any side is able to win that war, it is because of Dronacharya's teaching. Now, one of his students is on the battlefield. And he, whatever reasons, we will see his reasons of why he approaches Dronacharya during just before the war. We'll see that very clearly. Is going to approach his teacher. At no point in one's life would you want to approach wisdom, guidance, or mentorship with this attitude of arrogance. King, the way Sanjaya has used this word king, it highlights this arrogance. He could have just said Duryodhana comes. Some will argue that, oh, because Sanjaya is relaying, that's why he's using that respect. No, it's very intentional. Actually, for students of psychology who take up the Gita, this chapter 1 is filled with psychological implications. And in that is buried the greatest teachings of how the human mind works. So that very action of Duryodhana approaching his teacher as the king, not as a student or not just as a child, which he was in comparison to Duryodhana, spells his fate and fortune over there. Because pride goes before a fall. And we know of how Duryodhana will eventually fall in this entire battle. Another thing that we will see, Duryodhana starts speaking. Many a times, again, I want to relate every verse to our daily life, okay? So when Duryodhana speaks, you have to look to identify with him. That when we are overly arrogant or when we are overly fearful, we start rambling. We start speaking things that make no sense. Even if we don't, if your parents, you'll see your children doing that. When they are most fearful, when they know they've done something wrong, when they're guilty, or when they're just too full of themselves, they ramble things that make no sense. So, from this verse onwards, from the very fact that he comes forward as a king towards his teacher, he starts betraying his own fear and vanity, which he's very carefully trying to camouflage in front of Duryodhana. So, this is one thing I wanted to bring your attention to, that throughout what he's going to say next, pay attention to the tone of it, pay attention to how he says it, the words that are used, every word in the first chapter, especially that comes out of Duryodhana and Arjuna's mouth, is a psychological warfare. You really understand the entire human psyche through that. So that is one thing that I wanted to highlight. And another thing is that, see, with great power comes great responsibility. So Duryodhana right now being pitched up as the king, the prince, the leader of the Kaurava forces, should have such a great sense of responsibility, such a great sense of humility, such a great sense of just ownership to lead this army in a good way that does not destroy itself. But right from this first step of his chariot to everything that he utters in the next few shlokas, he just lacks that sense of responsibility completely. Like I said in the last class, that everything that Arjuna says, if Duryodhana says, this entire field of Kurukshetra would have become a Dharma Kshetra. But unfortunately, not. And one more thing I wanted to, we talked so much about habits, Rajesh ji highlighted habits. Let's just understand the chronology of habits, how habits come up. There's a lovely quote that describes that, and what do these habits do in our life. So that quote says, watch your thoughts, for they become your words. Watch your words, for they become your actions. Your actions, for they become your habits. Watch your habits, for they become your very character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. And the end of that quote is that famous quote, what we think, we become. So when we were talking, going back to the bad wolf and the good wolf, or to the bad tendencies and the negative tendencies, what are these tendencies in the mind currently? They're just thoughts, good thoughts, bad thoughts. So as long as we are watching those thoughts, we are able to nip those thoughts we are able to co-create our destiny with whatever creator you believe in. But the minute we lose control over that first step of watching our thoughts, very quickly, like a ball that you throw on the first step. See, if you throw a ball on the first step, try it. Do these experiments because these teachings go very firmly into the mind. If you throw the ball at the first step, if you catch it there and then, it's fine. Maybe if it goes to the next step, you would be able to catch it. If you're a little bit more agile and athletic on the third step, you'll be able to catch it. If you don't catch it there, it's just going to roll down at such a speed and crash at the end of the stairwell. So it is with our thought. If we are able to catch it there, then we are able to stop that downward spiral, which is unstoppable. Thoughts, words, actions, habits, character, destiny. So it's at the thought, at the most at the words, and definitely at actions. If we can correct ourselves, then we can hold back or retrain and rechannel our habits to our highest and best. Thank you.
Awesome. So that's the summary of the Shloka 2. So There is a quote: no matter our skills or the depth of our resources, when we are not aligned, when we are unaligned with Dharma, true confidence remains elusive. That's what was Duryodhana was demonstrating, as Avanti said. He was shaking because he knows that he was not aligned with Dharma. So that completes what we wanted to cover today. But please, one request is we covered two shlokas. The first shloka tells us that there is a battle that is happening inside me, and usually my mind is blind towards that battle. And in that battle, who wins is going to take care of the way I behave, the way I think, the way I feel, the way I act. So, the first shloka of the Gita is a call to action to do a regular self analysis, trying to understand what type of thoughts, emotions are dominating my mind and how I am being controlled by these thoughts and emotions. Just even observing that is going to make you a lot of changes in our life. So, this is a very powerful practice. So, that's the shloka number one. And shloka number two is also a warning towards how habits can influence us. Even if we have goodness in us, even if we have determination in us, if there is the habits are in the other way, it can create problem. So please try to see these type of direct value which affects our life, direct messages that affect our lives from the Gita, rather than a simple reading of the Gita, meaning commenting on what Duryodhana did or Drona did or Dhritarashtra did. This is more important. So we will continue this subjective analysis of the Gita as we move through the chapter, the verses of this chapter.